And welcome back, everyone, to Lantern Corps. I was about to say who would win. That was the last video. Who was the person who gave me this? Victor Von Doom. We have, what is Lantern Corps of? I've never heard his name pronounced. So, Meruem from the Chimera King, more or less, from Hunter x Hunter. A series that I haven't read extensively, but I am at least aware of, and I have some of the volumes of the manga there. It is okay. The vibe it gives me is a weird cross between Yu Yu Hakusho and early Naruto. That's the vibe I get from it. But he was a human chimera hybrid and among the strongest characters in the series at the time. He did ultimately end up dying, but he caused a lot of damage along his journey, and he grew as a character. So that said, what Lantern Corps do I think he belongs in from what I do know of him? And I have three possible candidates here. I don't see him as a Sorrow Lantern. Definitely not a Gold Lantern. Don't see him as Lantern of Shame. Conversely, and I don't see him as a White Lantern. He's certainly not a White Lantern. On the opposite side of the fence, though, or of the aisle here, if you will, screen, he's not really a Green Lantern. He's got a lot of willpower, but you also need to be able to overcome great fear. He doesn't strike me as a Green Lantern. Nor, though, does he really strike me as a Red Lantern either. Like, whatever anger he had wasn't really the type of anger that worked for a Red Lantern Corps, because that's mostly the anger of revenge or just like primal rage or whatever. He's not a Lantern of Love either, although he did have someone he cared very much for. It wasn't his motivating factor. So that being said, let's get to one that I do think he qualifies for, and it's an obvious one, but Fear. I think he is a shoo-in candidate for Fear. Like, when he showed up, people got scared. His power, his reputation. There were very few people who could really go toe-to-toe with him at all. And even among the Chimerians, he was scary. So Fear has to be a candidate. Another one that I don't think he qualifies for, though, is Hope. Really not a good candidate for Hope. Even if you want to make the argument, well, he held out hope for this, or he kept faith in this, that's fine. But a lot of people do that. That doesn't mean you qualify for Hope. Nor do people really put a lot of faith in him. Now, that being said, he did become a very compassionate individual near the end, and if we're going by, like, say, the beginning parts of the series, he would be a great candidate for compassion, because you either need to have it as your dominant emotion, or more than usual, or not more than usual, or more often than not, you need to be devoid of it, and then it pretty much kind of mellows you out to a certain level of compassion. So, yeah, if we're going by the majority of the series until his character growth really starts to kick in, compassion actually would make a lot of sense. Now, what doesn't make a lot of sense is avarice. He's not really a greedy character, not wanting more. He's just, at least not in the sense of someone who's never satisfied. Because he had an arc and he completed his arc. A character who has greed, like a massive amount of greed, would not really have, what's the best way to put it? There are characters who are designed to be greed lanterns. Like in the Black Knight storyline, when Larfleeze actually did send a couple Orange Lantern rings out, Lex Luthor got an Orange Lantern ring. That makes sense for him because he really is someone who just isn't satisfied. He cannot be. He's rich. He's a genius. Even if he beat Superman, he would not be satisfied. So that makes sense. But I don't see that really in a lot of the little I know of Meruem. That being said, though, A, he is dead, so he can be a Death Lantern. But B, killed a lot of guys. And being a Chimerian, he cannibalized other Chimerians as well. So not only did he kill a lot, he kind of became a little bit of an embodiment of death for a while. Not like the true embodiment of this is the Grim Reaper, but like if someone gave you the nickname the Grim Reaper because of the lives you took, death would be on the table, certainly. Add on to the fact that he is dead, and this is actually not a bad Lantern Corps at all. So of the three, which Lantern Corps do I think he belongs to the most? I'm going to say it's probably Fear as the least likely. Not because he couldn't qualify for Fear. It's that by the time we get to the end of his story, he imposes less fear as characters have gotten stronger. His life is coming to an end, and he's spending the time with the one person he actually still cares about. Or he cares the most about, I should say. So that leaves us with Death and Compassion. Woo. Death and Compassion, which could be the title of my next book. But Death and Compassion. I'll say this. I think the fact that he is dead and the amount of death he did cause leans him a little bit more, oddly enough, towards a Black Lantern ring. Because I think the fact that he gained compassion does detract from compassion to a certain degree. It needs to still be your dominant trait, and that's not what his dominant trait was, even by the end, as far as I could tell. Now, again, not to say he didn't have compassion at that point, but the fact is, it either needs to be your dominant emotion, or you need to be devoid of it. You can't just be in the middle. That's not how this works. This is a weird ring in that sense. If we're going by the beginning of the series and as far along until he really started to grow, then I would go more with compassion. I would. But if we're going by the end of the series, even if I was to take out the Death Lantern stuff, or the fact that he died, I still might lean a little bit more towards death. But the fact that he is dead helps that argument. So I actually lean towards a Death Lantern with this. Death Lanterns are not common with this series because a lot of time I'm doing a character, oh, well, this character's dead, so obviously he's going to be a Black Lantern. But what if he wasn't dead? So I don't usually lean towards the Black Lantern thing. Because a lot of time you either have to be dead or you have to kind of be like an embodiment of a death. Or just have no qualms about life and kill when you want and just be, happy about death. Like, if you're not already dead, to be a Death Lantern, it is a very weird relationship with death you have to have. Now, someone did say, well, Death Lantern should be is also the absence of all emotions. That's not, technically, yes, but that's not a qualifier for just like the White Lantern ring is not is the combination of the emotional light spectrum. It's not a qualifier for the emotional spectrum to be a White Lantern. That's not a qualifier. Likewise, I mean, yeah, you got to keep your emotions in balance, sure, but the White Lantern ring's different entirely. And the Black Lantern ring's the same. Technically speaking, it is a avoidance, if that's a word, of emotions. But that's not a qualifier. Because you're not dealing with emotions anymore. You're dealing with death and life. So the requirements to qualify for those two rings are different than the original 7. Anyway, though, that's my thoughts. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Later.